There are a number of issues that I wanted to investigate as part of my research and which I'd like to share with you. They're on the screen there. The first was an interest in what we know about the likely scale and pattern of climate migration in the South Pacific. What kind of numbers are we looking at, and what are the likely movements of people in the South Pacific? The second was an investigation on how the international law and policy framework is developing in relation to climate change in the Pacific. I was also interested in what New Zealand's legal and policy response might be to people impacted by climate change from a displacement perspective, and finally what the New Zealand government might be doing either now or in the future to respond to existing and future predicted issues of climate displacement in this region. So starting off with numbers, there are a wide range of numbers which have been published by various commentators in this area, and you can see some of them on the screen. Christian Aid, for example, has suggested that there may be 1 billion people displaced as a result of climate change by 2050. Some more conservative estimates, which appear to be more reliable, including the one from Norman Myers of 2012 million, or the respected UK economist Nicholas Stern, who has predicted in his report that there may be 200 million displaced by 2050. The UN Secretary General provided a possible range. Those are global numbers, but what about the South Pacific? Here is a list of some of the key nations in the Pacific with their land area and their population. You can see that it ranges from Melanesia of over 8.5 million down to the tiny nation of Tokelau of only 1,200. The ones in red are the ones or are the nations which are particularly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, although all of those countries in the South Pacific are. Kiribati with just over 100,000 population, Tuvalu much smaller at around 11,000. Surprisingly to me, there has not been very much empirical work on the numbers of people likely to be displaced in the South Pacific. However, one of the academics who has looked at it, John Campbell, a geographer, estimated in 2009 that there could be between 665,000 and 1.75 million climate migrants in the Pacific by the mid-century, when the population will be around 18 million. So these are big numbers, whichever way you look at them. The next question is, where are these people likely to go if they're not able to stay within their countries? Some of the countries in the Pacific, which have a range of land types, some low-lying, some a little higher, there will be people who are internally displaced. They may have to move away from low-lying coastal areas, for example, to the higher hinterland. There will be some countries which are simply don't have higher amounts of land available, and for those countries their displaced people will need to migrate to other countries completely. And of course, many of the people who are displaced are likely to move to other countries which are closer to them. But there will be a natural attraction for countries such as Australia and New Zealand, where not only are there existing communities of people, some of whom have been here for quite some time, but of course there are also employment opportunities and other economic opportunities which are likely to be attractive from some perspectives. So there are likely to be pressures for migration to countries such as Australia and New Zealand, and so it's important that governments think about this and put in place a proactive regime, in my view at least, to provide for an orderly form of migration rather than a disorderly form of migration. A number of Reports have been done on this, including the ones which are on the screen. It's been noted by some academics, including Ben Saul and other academics involved in that project, that trying to estimate numbers is difficult, partly because there's no agreed definition on what is a climate migrant or what is a climate refugee. There's no specific visa categories in any country which classifies people in this way, and that leads neatly, I think, to the international law framework for climate migration.